And welcome. My name is Jeff Franklin from UK Ag Communications, and I will be the MC for this morning's proceedings. I'd like to welcome you to the Little Research Center here in Woodford County as part of the UK College of Agriculture, Food and Environment, named for one of our former deans of the College of Agriculture, C. Orrin Little. As we begin today, and also I'd like to add that it also makes the perfect setting to announce today's SETIC study about the economic impact of the economic cluster here in Woodford County. As we continue this morning, I'd like to introduce to you the Dean and Director of the UK College of Agriculture, Food and Environment, Dean Nancy Cox.
Thanks, Jeff. Let me add my welcome to this lovely farm. I want to tell everybody who's a horse farmer, the horses you pass by are supposed to look like they look because it's a geriatric horse study. So all of those are old and they got too much of a hair coat. So I didn't want to forget to say that for all of you guys. We have a lot of guests here. We so appreciate being here today. Senator Julian Carroll. Thank you. Right next to him, Representative James Kay. Thank you so much. Commissioner Ryan Quarles. He will be on the program later. We have also representing Governor Bevin as his field representative, Sam McCown. Where's Sam? And Biff Baker, representing the Governor's Office on Ag Policy, and a great friend of ours. We also appreciate Mike Duckworth being here wearing many hats, but we're giving him the hat of the Farm Bureau and the Woodford Forward today. And Woodford Forward, one of the sponsors of this study, and its President Benny Bell Williams, and a nice contingent. Welcome all of y'all. Are there any other elected officials I might have missed? Good to know. Okay. Wanted to recognize some other folks here as well from the Woodford County Extension Office, Adam Probst and Elizabeth Coots. Welcome. We really appreciate Alltech being here with Emily Downey. Also our staff, Orlando Chambers, who is the director of all the research farms here, and Shannon Rudd, who runs this particular farm. And we really appreciate the degree of preparation it takes to get something ready like this. We also want to thank our sponsors, Kentucky Performance Products. Is Karen Eisberg here? We appreciate them anyway. One of our best friends of the college and of so many different efforts in this community, Kentucky Thoroughbred Association, and Chauncey Morris. We so appreciate your being here. Another sponsor is the Pisgah Community Historic Association. Do we have anybody here representing? Okay, great. Thank you very much. And then Woodford Forward is also a sponsor. Just a little bit about why we have this farm here and why we want it to be relevant to this community. We serve a cross-section of Kentucky agriculture here. As a land-grant university, our mission is to improve the agriculture economy and environmental quality and overall quality of life for our citizens. We have a lot of different agricultural enterprises represented here: horses, sheep, cattle, swine, tobacco, and other crops. Our job in the landscape for agriculture is to try to do the research and test the products so we take the risk as to whether it's going to be able to be recommended to a farmer and a producer. So we're the folks that do the unbiased research and try to make the recommendations that help everybody else save time and be more profitable. So that's how we're set up. This farm was bought by the University of Kentucky in 1991. It was named for Dr. Little, I think in 2011, Dr. Orrin Little. But it's been in agriculture for a really long time as Pin Oak Farm prior to becoming the Orrin Little Research Center. We have at least a dozen employees on this farm who live in Woodford County. we did notice on Allison's study, Allison Davis, who will be speaking next, that there's a big blank spot on the Woodford County map for the taxes because we don't pay taxes on the farm. So I wanted to tell you that at least a dozen employees live in the county and pay taxes. Plus, we have a lot of other people that work in the College of Ag that live over here. So the research that Allison Davis is going to talk about today is research on the agricultural economy and how important it is as a focus area. We think of agriculture as an agricultural business cluster. You think about Silicon Valley being a business cluster. Well, this is a land-based business cluster, and it depends on the land to exist. And so it fits with the mission of the college and so many of the sponsoring organizations here to be able to really assess the importance of the agricultural enterprises to this economy. So I think Jeff is, am I going to invite? I'm going to introduce Allison. Okay, great. Perfect. Right? No, she would rather have Jeff. No, Allison Davis is a really unique, she leads a unique enterprise called Community and Economic Development in Kentucky, and CETIC is the name for it in short as the acronym. And they do such a wide variety of assistance and innovative programs across many counties in the state. This is just one of the branches, I think, that CETIC does, is to help assess the ag economy. But she's done some innovative and original work to figure out the role of agriculture, because it's not that easy. Usually economic development reports don't have agriculture in it, such as the way we're looking at it. So please help me welcome our distinguished speaker, Allison Davis.
First off, let me raise that up a little bit. Thank you for, I think, that sarcastic welcome. All right, well, good morning, everybody. First, I want to take an opportunity to say thank you to Dean Cox for helping organize and host this, and Commissioner Quarles for being here, and all of our elected officials. Most importantly, I wanted to have a big shout out to my team who spent a lot of time over the last 8 months putting this report together. It is not easy. It is not just looking at a couple numbers and putting it together. So Simona Balazs, who's here, just thank you very much for all of your hard work. We also have as our co-authors Joe Kursmar and Melody Nall, who helped bring together the numbers and helped do some of our interviews. So I'm going to speak about 6 or 7 minutes today about the overview of the report. It will be made publicly available after this press conference. So we are presenting results today that estimate the economic importance of the agricultural cluster in Woodford County. We had 3 motivating factors behind doing the study. Oh, first off, I did want to say happy birthday to Al Cross. He snuck in behind. I thought, okay, I knew I was forgetting something. Okay. We'll sing afterwards. So our 3 motivating factors were to better understand the contribution of agriculture to Woodford County's economy, so jobs, revenue, taxes, and so forth. We also wanted to understand the importance of the rural landscape to predominantly non-agricultural businesses. There wasn't a lot of sense in going out and meeting with agricultural enterprises for the most part. We understand their value of the land, the importance of this landscape, but we really want to know, are the non-ag enterprises, how do they value this landscape? How do they use it in their everyday business? And then finally, we wanted to better visualize the land use patterns in the county and the contribution of agriculture to the property tax base, where Dean Cox alluded to the fact that she has 0, but that's okay. But for a very good cause. It's a public university land grant, so it's a very good cause. So I'm going to start talking about the 3 different pieces of the study, and afterwards I think Commissioner Quarles will come up, and then we'll do, I think, Q&A afterwards if that's appropriate. So first we start off in the study by providing an overview of Woodford County's economy, which we don't often do in these studies, but because Woodford County is relatively small, it's an interesting context to start the work. So while production or on-farm agriculture is an important component to the economy, it is not the largest. We have manufacturing, which still stands as the largest manufacturer, largest employer, and in addition we have healthcare, education, and local government that are also significant sectors. We found that a significant issue for Woodford County in general is the supply of local labor, and we heard that almost everywhere that we went. Woodford County is a small county. It has an estimated about 9,500 full-time jobs, and the county relies heavily on labor from outside counties. For example, I think we have about 4,400 people who commute into the county for work daily. There is significant competition for labor, particularly for on-farm and manufacturing sectors. And we'll talk a little bit about that later, but it's an important point to make. So I think Dean Cox alluded to the fact that a lot of times when we do the economic impact of agriculture, we limit it to on-farm production. And that makes it sometimes a pretty small number. Not so much in Woodford County, but in other areas. And so over the last, I guess, 5 or 6 years, we've tried to broaden that definition to really think about, particularly for Central Kentucky, what it really means to be an agricultural community. So a lot of studies more recently have extended the definition to include inputs to agriculture, food manufacturing and processing. In this study, we included that, but we did not consider those manufacturers or processors that didn't have an expected on-farm impact to the county. So we were really trying to see what was meaningful for Woodford County producers and businesses. I think we're the only ones that have done this so far, and I think it's because of the character of Central Kentucky communities, but we extend our analysis a bit further to capture the other sectors that, like support services, that are unique to the landscape in this community. So for example, we include veterinary care, financial services, real estate, fencing companies, and so forth to our agricultural cluster. We assume that if the ag cluster and the ag sector did disappear, that the lion's share of those jobs would also disappear or migrate to a different community. So the findings from this, we found that 1 out of 5 jobs, which is about 1,881 jobs in the county, is directly attributable to the agricultural cluster. So these are actual counted jobs with businesses behind them. And then when we apply the multiplier effect, which essentially measures the additional spillover effects from business and household spending as a consequence of the agricultural cluster, we find that roughly 30%, or 1 in 3 jobs, or a total of about 2,800 jobs, are either directly related to the ag cluster or indirectly related through the multiplier effect. This is significant. This is a very large number. It's a small county, but it's a very significant number. In addition, we estimated a $565 million impact on sales from the ag cluster and about $340 million in value added, which can be measured as additional income, profits, and dividends. We did an estimate to determine the impact on the local tax base, not the state base, but the local occupational sales taxes. And we assumed a 1.5% occupational tax rate, even though Midway has a little bit higher. But we don't know exactly where all these jobs are across the county, so we are trying to be a bit more conservative. We estimated that the impact on the county local tax base based on occupational taxes was approximately $1.1 million. That's about 20% of the total tax base. One thing I'll say before I move on to the next part of the study is that we know that these are important studies, and we tried to be as conservative as possible. And so through this study, our job was to identify jobs that were directly attributable to the ag cluster. And if we couldn't find that a job was perfectly directly attributable, then we did not include it. So there are lots of sectors that we were not able to get that information. For example, fencing companies, paint companies, they're excluded from this because we did not have a way of saying what percentage of those jobs we could relate back to the ag sector. So we think that this is a nice defensible number, if not a little bit low. This part of the study also explores the average wages by occupations within the sector and predicts significant replacement demand for many on-farm workers. And again, the earlier conversation about the competition for local labor, this is especially important because of the shortage of labor now and what's expected in the future. So the next part of the study looks at the reflection of local businesses and their perspectives on the agricultural community. We conducted interviews with 15 area businesses to explore what is considered meaningful or important to doing business in the community. These businesses included the largest manufacturers in the county, retail establishments, and restaurants, as well as a few farms and agricultural related businesses. So we asked questions like, what makes Woodford County an attractive location for you to do business, as well as an attractive location for your employees to live? We asked, what are the 3 main reasons you believe your business is located in Woodford County? And we asked, in what ways do the horse industry and agricultural related activities influence your business? And then finally, we asked, how would your views of Woodford County as a place to do business change if the rural landscape declined significantly? We have 6 or 7 pages within the report that provide every single response, but we just want to highlight a couple of the themes and phrases that we saw over and over again. So our phrases included quality of life, small town feel, beauty of the landscape, location, and proximity to larger cities. The one piece that the last question about how would you view Woodford County as a place to do business if the rural landscape declined significantly, and this is one of the quotes. Woodford County would lose its appeal as a place to do business and live. Recruitment and retention of employees would become more difficult, and Woodford County would lose its distinctive identity and brand. We did hear some conversations about, while development is wanted, that there must be careful consideration of both the available labor and the impact on infrastructure in the planning process. And finally, what was mentioned is a stronger line of communication across and between the ag and non-ag sectors. The final part of the study looks at land use and its contribution to the local property tax base. And we know that it's in this county that these land use decisions are at the forefront of many discussions. Our study didn't look at alternative land uses in terms of what types of taxes that they would contribute or the employment. We were only looking at what currently is in the county. So we found that 90% of the land is considered farmland. And this has remained constant over the last decade, which is dissimilar to other communities. The vast majority of Woodford County farms are considered prime farmland, meaning it is the best combination of physical and chemical characteristics for producing food, feed, forage, and oilseed crops. We found that there are roughly 1,500 total parcels that comprise over 700 farms. So this reflects just under 14% of all the parcels in the county, but they are valued at $520 million. So we found that these farms contribute approximately $5.2 million to the property tax base. We did also provide a map in the report that looks at the distribution of property tax assessments across the county and highlighted those that were currently in easement. So this concludes the highlights from the report. The report does suggest that agriculture is an incredibly important part of the Woodford County's economy. It's not the largest industry, but it's certainly important to, what is really important to me is to have a diverse economy that can go through ups and downs. Through all of our conversations, it just kept resonating with us after talking to folks that this community is very unique, and the rural landscape is used to attract and retain employees. My anecdote was 2 weeks ago, I had a meeting out in Woodford County, and we actually took a recruit for a position that we had, and we took him down Old Frankfort Pike and took him to Heirloom. And on the way back, I almost killed him going back down Old Frankfort Pike because it was dark. And he accepted the position, and he said he couldn't wait to move to a beautiful place. So I think I will stop here and then turn it over to Commissioner Quarles.
Thank you, Allison. Thank you, Allison. Allison will be available afterwards if any of the members of the media would like to have a one-on-one with her. It's my pleasure now to introduce the Kentucky Commissioner of Agriculture and also a proud UK College of Agriculture, Food and Environment graduate, Ryan
Thank you, Jeff, and good morning. It's an honor to be back in Woodford County among family and friends. Governor Carroll, Representative Kay, great to see you. His Holiness Hoppy Hinton, great to see you as well. My family has deep roots in Woodford County. My family moved here in the 1780s into the Pisgah area when John Tunstall Quarles served in the Revolutionary War and came here. And this is where we settled in the wild west of Kentucky at the time, like so many other Kentucky families can relate to. And they started farming. And so my family's been deeply connected in farming in central Kentucky for over 200 years. And that's something that I think really binds Kentucky together, because we are still considered a rural state. We have deep respect for our farming tradition and heritage. It really runs in our blood. And that's something I see consistently as I travel around the state. And we may be at the little farm, but as you just heard, there's nothing little about agriculture here in Woodford County. And your statistics are quite amazing, because as I get to travel, we oftentimes get to look at what the economic impact is across the state. And with just over 700 farms, that's very, very meaningful. And let me tell you why that's important. If you look behind you, who here has ever worked with tobacco and tobacco boxes, stripping tobacco? Raise your hand. All right, keep your hands raised if you still work in tobacco. Okay, did you see the difference? Did you see the difference? Kentucky's economy had no choice but to change after the demise of tobacco. We had, at our peak, over 80,000 tobacco farmers in our state. Now we have about 4,000. And it was really the forward thinking of our legislature passing House Bill 611 almost 20 years ago, actually, that set aside investment funds so that Kentucky's farm economy could diversify. Because of that, today, agriculture statewide brings in about $6 billion or so into the pockets of farmers each and every year. Those are direct farm cash receipts. And then when you apply the multiplier effect and look at how that agriculture money churns around the community, it's a $45.6 billion economic impact to our state. And if you look at our total state's economic output, our GDP of $190 billion, you can see that agriculture plays a very, very strong role. And it's also important that as we talk about these numbers and talk about the jobs that are available in agriculture, nationwide, it's 1 out of 5 jobs are agriculture related, is that we have a conversation about how are we going to fill those boots for the future. I'm so glad to work hand in hand with the UK College of Agriculture, as well as our other higher education institutions, to inspire that next generation of agricultural leaders, because the average age of a farmer in Kentucky is over 60 years old. And it's important to make sure that we have young people getting motivated and learning about the science, technology, engineering, and math that's behind agriculture, because we have got to develop a new pipeline. And it's also important as we do this research is that we don't just focus on the raw products coming off the farms and the fields. I mean, I know here in Woodford County, you are a top equine county. Some of the world's most valuable horses and athletes, I would say, come from Woodford County. And of course, one of my favorite farm products, distilled corn, comes out of Woodford County as well. And so it's important to realize that as we talk about economic development, we also talk about the value-added processing as well. Because we have more beef cattle than any other state east of the Mississippi. If you've had a biscuit from McDonald's anywhere on the East Coast of the United States, that biscuit came from Kentucky. Kentucky corn supplies the greater Nashville area with ethanol. And so as we start having these conversations, let's make sure that we include, as you did here, all the spin-offs and other connections that we have with farms across the state. And a final note, it's also important that we talk about the consumer role of agriculture. Oftentimes we get siloed into talking with just our farmers, but we forget that that's just the beginning of the food production process, that food and raw material has a long way to go before it winds up from that farm gate to the dinner plate. And the millennial generation, there's over 78 million millennials. There's more millennials in the United States than there were baby boomers at their peak. And they're spending over $1 trillion a year of their disposable income on food. And it's important that we not turn a blind eye to what their preferences are, because agriculture is changing, the consumer is changing, they're becoming more conscientious about where their food comes from, connecting with the local farmer, and with the local food movement continuing to flourish. That is a win-win-win, not just for our farmers, not just for the consumers, but also for economic development. So I like to say that if you like to eat, be sure to thank a farmer today. And it's an honor to be here in Woodford County. Congratulations.
Thanks.